Kia ora koutou, welcome everyone. We've got apologies from Councillor Billington, who's just on a flight to Wellington and he'll be joining us for the meetings later on. And Councillor Jackson for lateness, he'll be here at 8:45, but that may be an apology just based on the time of the meeting. No public forum, no declarations of conflicts of interest that I'm aware of. Oh, yes, sorry, thank you. I will move the apologies. Can I have a second of that? Councillor Parker, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Thanks. Jess, so conflicts of interest, none. Go to the report, and sorry, apologies. Welcome both John from Audit and Bruce, our Audit and Risk Chair. Great to have you on board, and I'll pass to Andrea.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to present the Annual Report 2021-2022, finally. I guess some highlights associated with the report. We made a surplus. Our revenue was better than budget, associated with invested assets, $4.5 million that was unbudgeted. We had some unrealised gains on our interest rate swaps. We had a stimulus water funding, $3.7 million. Our operating expenditure was higher than budget. There were two main contributing factors to that, being a change in the methodology for our diminishing value assets and a provision, last minute provision in regards to the Peel Forest landfill closure costs. Capital expenditure, we had capital expenditure of $74 million in the end. Majority, or 50% of that, was related to 3 waters infrastructure, footpaths 27%, and recreation and leisure being 11% of capital expenditure. So overall, a positive year.
Brilliant, thank you. I really appreciate that. Any questions for Andrew before I go to those on Zoom? Yeah, Councillor Booth, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just sort of questioning the use of the unrealised gains in the interest rate swap as cash received, because it's not actually cash received, is it?
No, part of it is cash received and some of it is not cash received. So there's a net movement in there of interest.
So it's 5.7, but that's not cash received, is it? I mean, Local Government Act sort of says income is rates, subsidies and grants, fees and charges, investment income, development contributions, and where that also the assets of 4.5 residential development vested, is that cash?
No, it's not cash.
So it's not really, shouldn't show as income then on your income as received, therefore. And also going back to the interest, we should be supplying everything at cost.
Sorry, Councillor Booth, just a question from the Chief Executive.
What page are you on, Councillor Booth? What?
Page 9.
Yeah, just like...
Oh.
So we supply things at cost. So obviously we entered into a favourable agreement 2 years ago, and the cost is basically less. That is the cost. It's not. We shouldn't be adding that as income. So just that's my only comment, and perhaps someone who actually knows more about it could perhaps comment.
Oh yeah, look, so, sorry, I was just looking to where you were. What, on page 9, we reference them as unrealised gains, but something that's not cash can still constitute revenue in terms of the financial reporting standards. And on Zoom or on the line are people far more qualified than me to talk about that. But what's revenue isn't, in terms of the financial reporting standards, isn't just cash, and it isn't just rates or fees and charges. It is what council receives in terms of anything that increases its asset base can be classified as revenue. So donations or gifts and therefore even an unrealised gain can be treated as revenue. So it's an accounting standard treatment, but I might let others explain that. I don't know if that assists at all, Councillor Booth.
Well, if that was the case, the gain on revaluation of assets would be included in the surplus.
And I think that it is, if I can take you to page.
Yeah, jump in, John, if you like.
Right. So with the interest rate swaps, what you're effectively doing is fixing the interest rate that you're going to pay on your borrowings. So that you take Timaru District Council borrows at a variable interest rate because that enables it to borrow cheaper. But by taking out the hedge, the interest rate swap, it is able to effectively convert that to a fixed rate. So you actually have to take the net effect of the hedging and the expense gives you the interest expense that you've locked in. It just gets a bit complicated with the accounting.
No, that's great. Thanks, Councillor Booth. Chief Executive, yes.
Yeah, Councillor Booth, just back to your prior question about the gain on the revaluation of assets. So if you go to page 119 of the agenda or page 107 of the actual annual report itself, you'll see that the gain on the revaluation of assets is shown, if you like, below the operating surplus, but it is shown as a form of revenue. And that's the $371 million or $642 million. And you'll see that that is shown as other comprehensive revenue. So although it's unrealised, it's still treated in the accounts as revenue.
Okay, brilliant. We might now go to John first, if that's right, for commentary. Thanks, John.
So I propose to issue an unmodified or clear audit opinion if the council authorises the mayor and CEO to sign the letter of representation and adopts the annual report, but essentially as it's been presented to you. What I should point out is that the audit report, although it's a clear report, it has two issues in it that I should note to you. One is we completed the work on the audit today, which is past the statutory deadline for the adoption of the annual report was 31st of December. What we note there, that we acknowledge that it was completed later than required by the Local Government Act due to auditor shortage in New Zealand and the consequential effects of COVID-19, including lockdowns. So it puts the responsibility on Audit New Zealand for that. The other bit that is not standard in it is there's an emphasis of matter about the uncertainty over the water services reform program. So I don't need to tell Timaru District Council about the water services reform program, but there's some quite complex accounting that will be required, will potentially required regarding that, and that just as you've got a note in the financial statements which refers to what the changes that are have been announced or may occur, and the paragraphs in the audit report refer to that and highlight the uncertainty. So that's the audit report. So if anybody's got questions on that, I'll answer it. Otherwise, I'll go to the letter of representation.
Thank you, John. Questions for John at all? No, we'll go now to Bruce, if you've got any further comments.
Well, I wonder whether John wanted to mention the letter of rep first before I speak, Nigel.
Yep, 100%. Thanks. Go for it, John.
Okay. Right. So what we've in the letter of representation, we highlight what I've just said, that there's the emphasis of matter of paragraph in the audit report. It also, in terms of representations about compliance with the Local Government Act, it notes about that the audit report was issued late beyond the statutory deadline, and it just repeats what's in the audit report for the reason. And the other significant addition is in regard to 2 North Street, just clarifying the council's position that you only acquired 2 North Street to facilitate the remediation by other parties.
Yeah, brilliant, and 100% that's still correct. Thank you. Appreciate that. Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. And look, greetings everybody. And just to reflect that as your chair of your risk committee, I'm here today because the committee has the responsibility to oversee the production of the annual report and to make a recommendation to you that you adopt this annual report. At the time that we met previously last month, this month actually, I think the 3rd of July, we weren't able to deal with a complete annual report or indeed a finalised letter of rep or opinion, which would be the ideal and the normal in a given year. And so the committee delegated to me as chair the responsibility on behalf of the committee to clear the final matters as they transpired and got to the point where we are today. So it's tremendous that we've got a chance now to actually adopt and receive the audit opinion on the annual report. And we're only here in part primarily because of the very hard yards of Andrea, Jason and Trudy. And I do, on behalf of the committee, just want to officially record my deep appreciation for the significant action and steps they have taken with John, our auditor, in the course of the last 2 to 3 weeks to get us to this point. It was having to go above and beyond to actually deliver on the day. So that's tremendous. In terms of my role, there were 3 things that I needed to clear prior to today, and more formally by way of email, I've given indications to Nigel and Bede as to me completing that. So I'm pleased to be able to say all 3 matters which I need to look at have been cleared. The first is the annual report. It's gone through us many number of times and is actually probably reasonably familiar to many of you actually in the chamber. And it's good to see that we have been able to now agree with John on what is actually a fair representation of our revenue expenditure and our balance sheet and cash flows. Look, Alan, I appreciate some of the questions you have, and indeed accounting for local authorities is somewhat complex. That's not to belittle the questions that come. They're the sorts of things, particularly outside of this meeting, would be tremendous to actually have a broader debate on, or at least a development and understanding. So the accounts are fine. There are, can I say, 1 or 2 typos, which Bede and I have been talking about, but they're the sorts of things that can be fixed up prior to the actual formal publication of the annual report. The annual report, and I don't have the page, sorry, Bede, I don't have the accounts in front of me, has got the statement of compliance. That is required to be signed by Nigel and Bede, which is effectively saying these are a reasonable representation of our position. And so consequently, given the committee has completed its work on the annual report, we'd recommend that Nigel and Bede sign the statement of compliance. John has also given me a chance to look at his draft opinion, and it's exactly as I would have expected in the way he's described. So on behalf of the committee, I'm comfortable that the form and the content of the audit opinion is one which we should be prepared to receive. That leaves the 3rd document, which is important today, which is a letter of representation. This is a letter to John indicating that we understand the nature of the annual report. We have provided him with all information that is relevant to enable him to complete the audit. And that requires us to sign that off. In fairness to John, he won't sign his opinion if we don't sign this. The nature of the letter of representation, again, John has highlighted, is pretty standard other than the matters that he has raised, which again I have looked through previously and have indicated to John and to Nigel and Bede that I am comfortable that the letter of rep should be signed. So when you put that all together, Nigel, the annual report, the audit opinion as John has drafted it, and the letter of rep, from the committee's perspective and on its behalf, I can indicate we're comfortable and would recommend you sign the statement of compliance and the letter of representation so we can receive John's audit report today. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks. Bruce, any questions for Bruce? No, that's great. So we'll go to the motion now. So we've got the council receive and adopt the annual report for the year ended 30th of June 2022. That the statement of compliance be signed. We also just need to delegate authority to make minor typographical changes to the Mayor and Chief Executive. And the letter of rep has been signed, so that doesn't need a motion, does it?
I don't think so.
No, I'm comfortable with that. So I'm happy to move that. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Burt, thank you. Any further discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thanks everyone. Thanks to the team, all those involved. And I'd just like to extend my thanks that echo Bruce's words before to the team, so I really appreciate that. Thanks Bruce and John for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you very much, you guys. Best of luck for the day.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Alrighty, brilliant. Meeting closed, and we'll be back at 10 o'clock for committee meetings. Thank you.